Hello, my fellow nocturnal historians. Set the room the way you like it. Dim light, a soft blanket, maybe the steady hush of a fan, and let your shoulders settle. Tonight we won't chase banners or trumpets. Instead, we'll follow a night through the quieter hours when the crowd has gone home and the iron is heavy. If it feels restful, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is there. I love imagining these slow journeys winding across the map candle to candle. This is not glory. This is the itch of a gambeson at dawn, the rasp of mail as it slides over linen, the sting of old bruises waking before you do. It's ledgers spread on a cold table, a squire's quick hands at stubborn buckles, a priest's low voice in the chapel when the yard is finally still. We'll walk beside him, no name needed, through chores, debts, damp boots, and small mercies. Breathe a little slower, let the present fade. Off the battlefield, honour is mostly patience, and patience at last makes a gentle place to sleep. Before the sun admits its morning, the room is a held breath. You can hear the brazier before you see it, the faint tick of metal cooling, the soft sigh when a coal collapses into red. Linen chills your skin. Somewhere beyond the shutters a rooster rehearses the day and gives up. Not yet. You sit up slowly because the ribs complain if you don't. The shirt you slept in is clean enough, scratchy where the seam is thick. You hold it to your face and it smells like lye and smoke, which is to say, like safety. On a peg, the gambeson, that padded jacket that will take the first argument with the world. You thread your arms into it and feel two things at once, the mercy of warmth and the promise of ache. The quilting has its own map, stitched islands where old bruises once bloomed, a faint hard line where your collarbone learned not to trust a lance. Your squire is already here. You heard him tiptoe, trying not to be a presence. He says, "Good," the way someone might say, "weather," and brings the little pot of oil. His hands are cracked where cold finds the skin, quick and careful at buckles that never lie perfectly flat. He never hurries the throat lace. He knows what it is to spend a day strangled by inches. Mail next. It looks like water poured into a heap, glittering dully in the brazier's glow. Together you lift the shirt of rings from its wooden chest. It has a secret weight. Even the memory of it is heavy. The first touch is cold enough to chase your breath. Then it warms and stays, like a sleeping dog settling on your lap. The sound it makes sliding over the gambeson is half rain, half rasp. 1,000 little arguments resolved by patience. Coif for the head, mittens for the hands. Each ring is a promise kept by someone you'll never meet. You roll your shoulders. The gambeson pinches at the armpits. You shrug the mail to settle it. The squire tuts, friendly, hopeless, at a broken rivet on the hem and flags it with a bit of thread so he'll mend it tonight. You let him, because small superstitions are a kind of glue. His are neat knots and orderly pegs. Yours are older. A sliver of bone from some holy place sewn under the left shoulder. A simple prayer you mouth like a yawn before you stand. On the bench, the pieces of plate, each with its own mind. Greaves for the shins that remember every thorn. Cuisses that have learned the curve of your thigh. Vambraces you will forget you're wearing until you try to scratch an itch. The breastplate shallowly dented in 3 places you don't often name. The squire warms the leather straps between his palms so they will not bite as cruelly at first. Buckles find holes with the stubbornness of habit. Tongues click through. Your breath shortens. You make adjustments you cannot teach. You learn again how to become a container. Your arms cannot rise as high as you'd like. Turning your neck is a choice, not a reflex. The armour pulls your posture into an honest line and then demands. You make friends with it. The first steps feel like walking into a strong wind, even indoors. This is how you know you're properly dressed. by the small negotiations your body signs without reading. The room holds other smells: oil and wool, fat and ash, a smear of tallow on the table from last night's candle. Rust is a daily enemy with a soft voice. It arrives in flecks and grows if you're kind enough to ignore it. You take up the cloth and work the joints. You always begin at the same place, the elbow of the right arm, small circles until the dullness gives way to a mean little shine. The squire will finish the rest, but this part is yours, a private piece. Not prayer, not exactly. More like arguing with time and winning this 1 inch. The male hood has a way of whispering to your ears. Long after you set it down at night, the whisper continues. A softness in the ringing that war left you. Some days you think you can hear bees in stone walls, distant and content. The chirp of the brazier agrees. You test the straps. Finger under buckle, pull and ease, pull and ease. The leather knows when it is too tight before you do. Good strap is softer than it looks. A bad strap waits to betray you when you sweat. You have a shelf of bad straps that you cannot bear to throw away because they taught you something. Boots now. They remember every mile your knees pretend to forget. The left heel is newer, and it squeaks. You bite the strap with your teeth like a clown to free a hand and laugh, because this is ridiculous, and the squire laughs too in the knowing way of people who have both learned the same ridiculous truth, that dignity is elastic at dawn. You stand to feel the whole of it. Male settling again, plate-hugging shins. The gambeson shifts heat along your spine. Your hands go automatically to the waist where a belt will ride. Muscle memory reaches for weight not yet there. The sword will hang, yes, but not now. Not for the field, for town. For the shape of the day when iron is just another tool in the bundle you carry. Like patience, like courtesy. Like the good sense to say nothing when 3 men talk at once. Your horse nicks at the door with a hoof, impatient, theatrical. The sound is the perfect measure of the morning. You picture his breath in clouds, saddle drying by the stove, a groom's back bent, the farrier's hammer tenderizing iron into obedience. You feel a small, familiar spike of worry that the girth will chafe if someone has hurried the brushing. Worry is part of the uniform. Breakfast is here, if the word is not too proud. A heel of bread tough enough to argue, a shallow bowl of last night's pottage coaxed back to life, a mug of ale that's more water than not. You eat because eating is a job like any other. The squire steals the end of the bread only after you put it in his hand. He says thanks to the bread, not to you. Old habit. You're glad. You rig the gauntlets and flex your fingers. The joints click like someone quietly approving. Scar tissue does its own arithmetic. Some days it sums to stiffness, some to forgiveness. You turn the palm to the brazier and let heat find the ache. Heat listens better than people do. You remember a winter ride that laid a numbness into your ring finger that never truly left. In summer it tattles on storms. Time now to check the little things that become large when forgotten. A thong to tie the dagger sheath tight so it doesn't drum your thigh raw. The buckle that keeps the mail from worrying at your wrist bone. The thin strip of wool you tuck under the edge of the collar because the edge of the collar is the kind of friend who loves you but cannot help biting. None of this will be admired. All of this will be noticed by you alone when you are miles from help. The squire offers the surcoat with the device stitched clumsily, but with love. You don't wear it for beauty. You wear it because sun on metal is a thief, because rain in joints is a liar, also because cloth is story, and story makes strangers into cousins for the length of a road. He looks to see if you will touch the embroidery. You don't, and he nods, relieved he was right about your particular superstition, that you never touch the emblem on a day that begins cold. You fasten the last buckle and the room becomes smaller. Armour does that. It shrinks the world the length of your arm, the breadth of a doorway, the shape of a stair. You take one step for the knee to speak and another for the hip to answer. Your breath comes measured. You feel the place near the clavicle where iron always wants to rest. You teach it again that you are not furniture. At the chest there's a little pouch stitched inside the gambeson, where the skin might confuse fear for prophecy. You reach in without looking and find the tiny thing you keep. Bone, wood, a shred of someone's ribbon that says not luck exactly, permission maybe. The squire notices the buckle you always forget. He pretends he didn't. He fixes it in the way that makes you feel you fixed it. You thank him by letting the thanks be ordinary. He grins in the firelight prettier than a hymn and hands you the hood. Weather, he says. This time you nod. When you turn to the door, the whole room follows, held to you by straps and promises. Your shadow looks like a man becoming a bell. You have to angle sideways through the frame because it's a door for linen, and you find yourself wearing a house. Outside, the yard will be wet with breath and creatures. The sky will be the colour of old pewter, and then, unreasonably, of milk. The first shout will be someone lying to a horse in a kind voice. The second will be a cart demanding to be a ship. The third will be a steward looking for ink he left in the pocket of yesterday. You pause with your hand on the latch. This is the part that belongs only to you. The short stillness between being a person in a room and being a role in a day. The armour is heavy. It is also honest. It says what it is, all the time. You breathe once, twice, in a rhythm that your chest learned under a different sky. The mail moves a fraction. The plates reshape quiet around you. Something in the spine unwinds like a winter rope. You open the door. Cold climbs into the sleeves. The yard bows in its rude way. The squire puts the helm under his arm and trots ahead because trotting is what hope does. You follow, your stride a compromise that you have perfected. Not proud, not humble, exactly. Practical with a memory of pride. A groom ducks past with hay on his shoulder and a blessing in his mouth. You take it like bread. It sticks to your ribs. And as you cross the threshold into the business of other people, you feel the truth that knights do not say aloud. The iron you carry is not the heaviest thing you own. And still, the armour is the cheap part. The hall wakes before the people do. Rushes shift underfoot with the sound of dry rain. The hearth mutters to itself, finding its confidence. Smoke rises in a tired ribbon and decides to live indoors a while. A steward is already at the trestle with his little battlefield. Inkhorn, quills, a knife for sharpening. Tally sticks bundled with twine. He does not look up when you enter. Stewards don't waste greetings. They hoard them for leverage. Your cloak steams faintly where dawn touched it. The bench remembers your weight with a groan. Someone has salted the ale until it tastes like a rumour. The steward pushes a slate toward you with the finger of a man who has slept less than he wishes. On it, a day. Names, dues, fines, grievances, the way a web sketches its maker. First, he says, which means first of many. A miller and a mason arguing over a spillway that keeps forgetting whose water is whose. The mason bows like a door on a bad hinge. The miller bows like a sack being lowered. They speak at the same time with the exact courage that comes from knowing they are right. You listen the way armour listens, without blinking. You let them spend their words because words must tire before judgment can stand up. You ask the miller to show calluses and the mason to show a drawing traced in soot on a board. The soot drawing is better than the words. You draw a line with your glove and both men follow your finger as if it were a plough, and there the solution is. A stone moved, a board raised, a promise witnessed by 3 mouths that would rather not be involved but will repeat it faithfully for years. You say, "Let it be so," softly, as if agreeing with the river. The steward scratches the decision into the day. The men leave a little straighter than they came. You notice the way they do not look at each other, which is how peace often begins. A widow asks for remittance on her rent in kind. The rye failed on the low strip by the alder trees, and her boy's cough has grown teeth. She does not cry because she's already done that in a private room and prefers not to. Repeat herself. You ask the steward for last year's note. There it is. She paid late, but paid, even in the thin year. You grant her time and seed on the condition that she let the reeve set hands to her thatch before frost. She nods once, a covenant between tired people. She blesses you without using the word. The priest arrives because priests arrive when ledgers are open. He brings a weather report for souls. Feast days require meat for the poor, candles for the nave, labour for the procession platform that refuses to be square. He also brings a rumour folded like a letter, a peddler with saints' bones of enthusiastic origin, a man who uses dice too well, a girl who knows herbs suspiciously. You make the correct noises. The priest makes the correct bows. Between you sits an unspoken bargain. He tends fear, you tend order. Together you try to keep them from shaking the same tree. By third hour the hall is a market of petitions. Boundaries have moved in the night. Hedges creep like ivy. Pigs misunderstand property. Two brothers have borrowed the same plough from a cousin who owns neither plough nor patience. You restore the plough to the cousin who never had it, by loaning one from the Manor and charging both brothers a small fine that buys them a story to tell at supper. People love fines less than they love stories, but stories last longer and do less harm. A messenger stands in the doorway with rain on his shoulders and someone else's message in his mouth. Your lord is calling men for a progress next month. You're to bring a clean surcoat, 3 mounted, and 1 gift that does not embarrass anyone. The steward makes the face stewards make when coins already assigned to shingles must bow to hospitality. You make a note to thank a neighbouring knight loudly in public for nothing at all. Gratitude turns rivals into furniture for a day. Dinner comes as a negotiation with the kitchen. Salt beef that asks for forgiveness. Barley that decides to be generous. Leeks that have tried their best. You eat because you are watched, and because work continues while bread cools. A reeve asks permission to move the boundary stones before the ground freezes. You ask him which neighbour will complain. He names 2. You permit the stones, but require 3 witnesses. He grins like a fox that has found a legal path to the henhouse, and swears to take the path you pointed at. In the afternoon the Lord's factor arrives, smelling of wet leather and authority. He wears accounting the way some men wear perfume. His news is a chain of alas wrapped in a velvet bow, wool prices as moody as spring, a levy from the sheriff, a cart broken on the North Road, and an excellent chance to purchase hay at a rate that is only ruinous if you plan to survive winter. You say you will think, which means you will lie awake looking at the beams while the hall sleeps. He bows the full weight of his errands at your feet, and leaves 3 papers that will dry by the fire into curls like dead leaves. Just when the day seems fully grown, the door fills with a figure who has never understood doors, your lord's cousin. He is a polite storm. He kisses cheeks that do not wish to be kissed, and laughs at a volume suitable for outdoors. He has a favour to ask that begins with a complaint. A path across your meadow that his men have always used since last week, and why is the new gate so stubborn? Here is where etiquette becomes armour. You incline the head exactly enough to honour the cousin, and not an inch more to honour the presumption. You speak in the language of hedges and custom, and the common good. You invite him, with compliments, to explain his need again, but slower. He refuses to be slowed. He asks for wine to make his point. You pour water to make yours. The hall holds its breath while manners duel in velvet. In the end you craft a permission with thorns. His men may pass on market days at a walk 2 abreast with no carts. until the spring lambing, provided he sends one man for ditch clearing before each market day and swears, on a relic you will conveniently have in your chapel, that he will call off his hounds when they forget themselves. He beams at this, having won nothing he asked for and everything he will say he did. He leaves a compliment on your good sense like a tip-tat on a windy day. The steward exhales. He counts the small victories. A hedge preserved, a ditch to be cleared by other hands, a relic kissed by a mouth that dislikes being told where to go. He writes them down as if writing made them permanent. You know better. Permanence is a sermon, not a fact. Toward dusk comes the small procession of faces you half expected. A boy who wants to be a squire and offers the evidence of his enthusiasm. A carter who fears the bridge won't forgive another winter. A mother who thinks her daughter is meant for the cloister because the girl loves quiet more than company. You approve the boy for stable work first, because all eagerness must learn muck before it learns polish. You promise the carter nothing and everything. To look tomorrow and to send 2 men with a pole. You tell the mother to speak with the priest and not to hurry the girl's silence into vows. She looks at you as if you have saved her from something invisible and heavy. Perhaps you have. When the petitions ebb, the steward lays out oaths for the men due to renew them, hands on gospel, promises about service, words that taste old and useful. You take the oaths because a hall must hear them from a voice it trusts when the Lord is elsewhere. Each man leaves a piece of his worry in the air. Each takes a piece of your burden in his pocket. That is the trade no one writes down. The priest returns for the last word he always claims, a notice about the bishop's visit, the measure of bread for the poor on All Souls, the caution against dice on holy days said in a tone that knows dice prefer holy days. You nod through the litany and ask for a list of candles needed. He smiles at this practical piety. He will bring the list already longer than you can afford. The light thins to a colour that makes wood look patient. The steward stacks the tallies, sands the wet lines on the parchment, and finally allows himself the luxury of a stretch that cracks like a twig. You sign your name with the deliberate hand of someone who knows witnesses watch for tremor. The quill scratches a final promise into the skin of an animal long gone to soup. Outside, a horn sounds. Not alarm, not yet. The yard pauses, listening with you. The steward looks up, measuring distances in his head the way a farmer measures weather by smell. A guard appears at the door with the posture of a man who would rather be anywhere else than the doorway of duty. Patrol, he says. Road talk, nothing sharp. Yet. You stand, and the armour you forgot you were wearing stands with you, filling the doorway the way a decision fills a room. The hall exhales its people into corners and cupboards. The steward blows out 2 candles to save wax, because wax is coin. The priest crosses himself and the air, which never hurts. You take your gloves from the bench. The leather has warmed to your hands as if it were waiting for permission. Outside, the yard is all rope creak, hoof scuff, lantern hiss. You think of hedges that behave, oaths that hold, coins that do not multiply, favours that breed like rabbits when unwatched. You think of the thin line between courtesy and threat, and how your day has been a long walk along it. And the ink dries, the steward says, not meaning ink at all. Just in time, you answer, not meaning time, to ride out for a thing no one truly wants. Morning hardens in the yard the way frost hardens bread. The ground is a drumhead stretched tight. Your boot sole finds it and takes note. Breath shows itself in pale ribbons, yours, the groom's, the horse's, even the dog's little declarations of existence. Somewhere a farrier's hammer keeps time, tapping iron into something the day can use. The pell stands where it always stands, a post with a history of other people's shoulders. Its wood remembers mistakes. You salute it out of habit, not reverence, and begin. The first strikes are courteous, test cuts to wake the wrist, to remind the elbow that it is a hinge, not a suggestion. Then wait. The sword meets the post and talks through your bones. The padding under the gambeson takes the news and files it in the usual drawer, to be read later by your ribs when you lie down to sleep. You count without counting. 5s become 10s. The shoulder warms and then complains. You answer by moving your feet. Footwork is the quiet craft. It keeps pride from writing checks the ground cannot cash. Half steps, pivots, the small forgiveness of yielding an inch to take 2. The squire watches your feet instead of your blade. He is learning. You correct nothing out loud. Corrections spoken too loudly become arguments the body refuses to hear. A lance waits in the rack, plain as a broom. You lift it, and your day lengthens by a yard. Couch in the shaft under the arm fits like a remembered oath. You ride it against the quintain, just a bag on a swivel with a shield tacked to its face, and let the horse carry the first part of the problem while you carry the last. The blow lands, the bag swings, the counterweight spins. You lean, you recover, you laugh at yourself with your teeth hidden, because the bag has opinions and sometimes you deserve them. Your horse snorts in the cold, sharp, conversational. He rolls an eye that says he forgives you for yesterday. You answer with the language he prefers, hand on the withers, a good scratch where the mane begins, breath down his neck so he can smell your breakfast and know you're not a stranger. He leans a whisker against your wrist, and that is as close to an embrace as the day allows. The groom tightens the girth one hole. You loosen it back one half hole because you have your cut of superstition and he has his. Between you the saddle will not lie. Mounting in mail is a negotiation with gravity. The stirrup finds the boot. Old friends. You swing up and the world drops away by one man's height. The horse walks with the important boredom of an animal that has been asked to do the same miracle again. You feel the leather answer your weight. The girth think about it. The bit make it small arithmetic with his tongue. You keep your hands as if you were carrying a bowl of soup through a crowd, steady, apologetic, firm when the floor moves, warm up, then lines of poles. You ask for a collected trot and he gives you something that isn't, and then, when you stop thinking about the name of it, he gives you exactly what you meant. Hooves find their places. Breath sinks. His, yours, the yard's. The farrier strikes again and you time a half halt to the rhythm of the hammer. The squire runs beside with a headstall you asked him to bring and forget to use. He's learning the first lesson of service, to be useful even when you aren't needed. You drill shield work until your left arm fills with the slow fire of endurance. Blows arrive from a practice partner who has learned kindness without mercy. The shield's boss thuds, your elbow hums, your teeth consider a vote. The strap across your forearm pinches precisely where you failed to pad it. You file another small note for tonight. More wool, less pride. Then the mistakes. A step too long, a hand too wide, the shield too low by a finger. Your partner's blunted blade nudges the edge of your helm, tap, tap, a schoolmaster's ruler on a careless desk. You answer with footwork, then with breath, and lust with a short, stubborn burst of power that travels from heel to hip to shoulder to hand without announcing itself. The pell would have approved. The partner grins inside his visor where no one can see it. You break to walk the horse, and cool thoughts. A groom brings a bucket. The horse makes his private weather in it. Water sloshes like a small river negotiating stones. You run a hand down a foreleg and feel heat, where there should be only warmth, not lameness, just a complaint. You make the sign your own father made when he didn't want the world to worry. Thumb rub, finger press, a short word to the air. You tell the squire to check the shoe for a risen nail. He does the thing boys do, acts faster than he thinks, and nearly takes a hoof to the thigh. You grab his collar, curse without heat, and show him how to stand where he cannot be kicked, unless the horse turns into a scholar. Back on the ground, you work the pell with the mace. It is a different conversation, blunt, honest, short sentences. Your shoulders accept an education in gravity. Somewhere between the 5th and the 15th strike you forget that you can count and remember instead that you can breathe. The breath is what the day has been asking for all along. You give it. The yard grows larger by a handspan. The sky forgives its colour. Bruises have their own calendar. The ones from last week turn the pretty colours now. The ones from today will arrive tonight like late guests with loud opinions. Your fingers complain at the first joint where old brakes learned weather law. A poultice waits in the kitchen. A smell of vinegar and ground things, the apothecary says, will flatter your blood into moving. You will fall asleep smelling faintly of salad and church floor. The dog finds you because dogs collect the most tired person in any group. He leans his shoulder against your greave as if to hold you up and sighs dramatically. You scratch the narrow place behind his ear with a gauntlet knuckle, and he forgives the metal for not being a hand. Lunch is earned bread and a slice of something courage called meat. You eat standing because the bench will not let you rise again without an honest negotiation. The squire talks about nothing important in the important way of young men who need you to be listening even if there is nothing to hear. You nod at the correct intervals and keep chewing until hunger loses interest. Afternoon is for tack and small humiliations. A buckle you trusted yesterday has decided to be French today. A strap that lay quiet all spring rises to argue with a seam. You lay the bridle across your thigh and oil it with the patience you did not spend in the hall. Leather drinks. Your hands smell like a friendly barn. The squire, having nearly been kicked once, now moves like a librarian, quiet and everywhere at once. You long the horse in easy circles until easy stops pretending and shows itself. He lowers his head, blows, and remembers that he is an animal built to be kind to a man for reasons no one fully understands. You praise him in the grammar he prefers: tone, weight, absence of doubt. He hears all three. He flicks an ear that means, yes then, and you stop before the lesson grows dull. Stopping at the right time is what saves tomorrow from resenting today. Bandaging is origami for people who don't know they like art. You wrap the foreleg with even pressure, neither kind nor cruel, just enough to tell swelling you've noticed it and will not tolerate swagger. The horse tolerates you with the saintly boredom of a creature who knows you mean well. The groom watches and pretends not to watch. Learning is always a pretend at first. By the last light the yard smells of iron cooled too fast. Leather that will crack if no one loves it. And the honest sweat of animals that have told the truth all day. You run a cloth over the mail and catch orange at a joint. Treachery, domestic and slow. You polish it out with the little circles that keep despair off metal. The squire counts breaths with you without knowing it. The farrier quenches one last shoe. The steam makes a ghost that refuses to haunt and simply drifts away. You sit on the mounting block because it is honest furniture and admit to your knees that they are part of the household. The ache comes in like tide. No hurry, all certainty. You make the old bargains, arnica tonight, measure your steps on the stair. No showing off at supper. Thank the cook for the hot water because hot water is charity in a bowl. The body hears and agrees to continue being a place you can live. And when the racket finally quiets, the hammer done, the dog fed, the last girth hung on its peg, the yard grows big with the kind of silence that counts. In that clearing, other things step forward. A slate with numbers. A horse that eats hay faster than hay grows. A strap that will not last another season. A rumour of a levy. an invitation to a feast that will cost more than absence. You rise with the careful drama of a tree in wind. The squire brings your cloak, which decides to be kind. Someone in the kitchen laughs like a spilled bag of peas. You find you are smiling at the ground. Practice is done. The long ache has taken its seat, and when the body quiets, the numbers begin. The counting table is colder than it looks. Coins hold night the way stone holds damp. You spread them with 2 fingers so they won't pretend to be more. Silver keeps its own counsel. Copper tells you everything you don't want to hear. The steward brings the ledger. Glued spine, smoke smell. Edges furred by years of worry. Inside, winter hay, shoe nails, lamp oil, wool for padding, oats by the sack, salt by the handful. Armour is bought once, keeping it is the expense. Oil in small jars, rags that vanish, files that dull their teeth on your stubborn metal. You mark a line for miscellany that is really surprise. The pyramid of costs sits where it always sits. Horse at the top, then armour, then the people who keep both from becoming stories. Fodder swallows coin like a kindly river. A destrier eats whether glory arrives or not. Shoes wear thin on roads that shouldn't exist but do. The farrier's hammer is a metronome for money. Leaving the room, Manor math runs under everything. Rent comes in grain and promises. A thatch wants replacing before the real snows. The north gate will sulk into spring if not humoured now. You choose between seed and saddle repair the way a man chooses between breath and bread. Slowly, with a prayer that no one hears. The steward lays out notes in his small tidy hand. The sheriff's levy, written as if apologising. A bridge repair the reeve swears cannot wait. A fine owed by a cousin who never arrives empty-handed except of money. You rub the edge of a coin and feel where a knife stole a shaving last market. Coins travel through too many hands to remain honest. So do favours. The word ransom sits in the margin like a superstition. Off the field, it is an insurance more real than armour. What you are worth if luck goes thin. You know your price. You know what your lord has paid for others and what he did not. You do not write that part down. Numbers become heavier when ink is involved. You carry the thought like a smooth stone that warms and cools with the day. There are debts you can see, and debts that sit at supper. A neighbour guaranteed a loan for your last horse. He chats cheerfully over stew, and every joke remembers interest. You intend to pay him in full before he finds a way to forgive you. Mercy costs more than silver. The church has a column of its own that grows with a calendar. Candles for feasts, alms for the poor, a tithe that never forgets to be a tenth. Pilgrims pass through carrying bones with enthusiastic origins. Hospitality is a virtue and a ledger line. The priest prefers the company of promises paid on time. God, you hope, is kinder. On a clean page you write the year's repairs, girths to restitch, billets to replace, a saddle tree that has confessed its crack. Leather is faithful if you are faithful first. You oil a strap as the steward reads out cartwheel, axle, linchpin, and you realise everything you own turns on circles. Marriage is here too, though no one says it loudly. Alliances are arithmetic. A dowry is a field with a veil on. You think of your wife's steady hands folding linen into useful shapes, of the way she counts eggs and blessings with the same mouth. Her side of the ledger is the part that keeps the house from waking you with its opinions. In the corner the squire mends a torn surcoat with the concentration of a monk. Thread, bite, pull, the emblem straightens. The cloth will keep sun-off metal and story on your back. Stories cost, but they also pay. A gate opened because someone's grandmother remembers your colours. A price lowered because memory felt generous. The steward reminds you, softly, like a cough, that the hay seller in the next valley is offering bales at a rate that is merely painful. Buy now, or buy a famine later. You purchase pain. The steward writes with relief disguised as disapproval. You count again. Coins click into stacks that look like certainty and behave like weather. A tax roomer drifts in through the open door with the smell of rain. You make a note in the ledger's margin. If, which is another way to spell when. Afternoon light turns the page to milk and shadow. You strike out a small luxury you wanted. A better scabbard throat, a prettier buckle, and write nails instead. Nails hold roofs down, buckles hold pride up. Tonight will be rain. You think of the Garrison's mouths, the horse's clever hooves, the dog who considers himself on salary. Of the young spearman whose mother counts on your cabbage patch more than your courage. Of the beggar who has learned your kitchen door. Charity is also a line item. It pays in something that does not clink. The steward closes the book with two palms like prayer. He lingers, then mentions, as if about the weather, the thing both of you have not wanted to speak. A cousin's debt come due. The one tied to a favour you cannot safely refuse. You say, we'll find it, and you will. Because finding has less to do with discovery than with deciding which small grief to invite inside. A knock, gentle. The groom asks for coin for resin and wool. Two words that mean hoof will hold. You give him more than he asked. The horse pays it back in ways that never learn to use numbers. A stray splash of ink freckles the ledger's edge. You mark it with your thumb and leave your print. A small signature no one will read. The steward smiles because he counts signs along with coins. He says there is a market 2 villages over, where iron might be cheaper by a breath. You nod and send him with your blessing and a tighter purse than is polite. Evening tucks its grey scarf around the rafters. You weigh one last coin in your palm and set it down as if it could hear your intentions. The room grows warmer when you decide to be poorer now instead of later. It is a kind of courage, the quiet sort no song requires. From the yard, the bell of a harness ring, a horse shaking off flies, a boy laughing at nothing. The door is a square of dim light. Beyond it live the costs you cannot plan. Hoofstone, sudden fever, a guest who arrives with a grin and a hunger. You breathe, and the ledger does not. It only waits for more of you. And into this careful ledger walks the priest. He brings the season in his sleeve. Candles to count, souls to warm, a list of needs with mercy written in the margins. Silver keeps score, but duty keeps time. You carry both, one in the purse, one in the chest, and spend them as gently as you can. Dusk thins the world to simple shapes. The chapel waits as a dark loaf on the edge of the yard, the door a mouth that has learned to keep its counsel. Inside, stone keeps yesterday's cool. Beeswax remembers summer even when the wind forgets. Your steps arrive as small rumours on flagstone and fade like good advice. A lamp ticks. The priest breathes. 2 silhouettes practice old choreography. A man who is never quite off duty and another who is never quite done forgiving. You kneel because kneeling puts the body where the mind needs help to go. The wood knows your weight. The cushion is tired in your favourite places. There is a litany you both respect. Impatience with fools, pride worn for weather, anger that kicks like a startled horse, the coin you kept when you might have parted with it, the cut remark you sheathed too late. The priest asks nothing clever. He has learned that naming a sin too beautifully makes it harder to let go. You give him short words. He gives you short penance. Bread denied tomorrow till noon. A psalm that laces the mouth to the heart, leaving 1 cup of ale in the jug so a groom can discover charity on a shelf. The screen's wood smells faintly of smoke and fingers. You rest your brow there and find, with the fresh surprise of habit, that grief will come if invited gently. Not battle grief, the trumpet kind, but the mild household sort. A horse you could not save last winter, a boy who faked a brave face and then forgot to be a child, a wife who stitches late and pretends not to count your risks as carefully as she counts beans. You let the ache have its minute. You do not make speeches to it. It rewards you by leaving a little sooner. You light a candle, and it changes the room's mind, flameless toward you like a friend leaning in to catch a whisper. On the wall, a saint watches with the tender sternness of someone who remembers your parents. You press a thumb to a relic case, bone or wood, who can say, and feel foolish and comforted in the same heartbeat. Superstition wears the clothes of love in such places. You let it. Out in the yard, a rook scolds the evening. The bell rope idles against the wall. A rope means a bell means a boundary you share with the dark. You mouth the smallest promise you keep. No boasting at table. No cruelty done in jokes. No letting hunger turn honest men into problems. Vows work best when they are small enough to finish before sleep. You sit back on the bench and listen to the chapel breathe. A draught finds the hem of your cloak and writes a shiver up your shin. You grin at your own body the way an old man grins at a grandchild, fond, scolding, resigned to be kind. The priest coughs, that library coffee polishes, and asks after matters he already knows. The levy, the bridge, the hand that trembled when you signed. You tell him the same truth differently, and he nods as if newly informed. That is one of the trades you keep. He pretends to be surprised. You pretend to be strong. He speaks of the calendar, vigils and souls and candles, hands needed to carry a platform that still refuses to be square. He asks, very nearly as a friend, whether fear comes at you in the morning or the night. You admit, both, but gentler than before. He smiles at that as if mercy were a craft you're learning, and prescribes 2 quiets, one while the yard still tramps about, one after it sleeps. Write them down, he says, meaning your head, not the ledger. Outside, boots go past and the snow of their noise settles. Someone drops a bucket and invents a saint. Someone else laughs like a door caught on a nail and freed. You close your eyes to hear better the things that make a place yours. The uneven bellows of a tired dog, the sizzle of tallow, the distant clip of a knife becoming tomorrow's edge on a stone. In this hush, memories arrive in plain clothes. A roadside mercy, sharing a cloak edge with a beggar you called uncle because the word tastes warm. A small cowardice, letting a cousin insult a groom because the room had politics and you were tired. A joy you forgot to count, a colt's first sure step, all knees and pride. You line them up without scolding. Judgment belongs in the hall. Here you practice inventory. Your fingers find the stitched pocket at the gambeson's chest, and the tiny relic you keep there. Bone, twig, ribbon. Whatever it is, it holds a feeling longer than you can. You carry it not for luck, but for grammar. It teaches your hands to conjugate please and thank you before you need either. You rise and your knees make the music they make. The priest gives you bread for someone else and a look that says don't forget which someone. You won't. You bow, only as much as truth deserves, and the chapel returns you to the yard like a mother returns a bowl, washed, warm, and ready. Night has taken possession of corners first. Lanterns put halos on puddles. A groom hums a hymn that never learned all its verses. From the kitchen window, breath wanders out in steam. The cook scolds a pot that answers in bubbling contrition. Somewhere, a game of knucklebones produces an oath that converts midway into a prayer. The world is settling its accounts. You walk the fence as if it were a sentence you must finish. Hand on rail, eyes learning Dark's grammar again. The horse lifts his head and recognizes you by the argument your boots have with gravel. You rub the long muscle of his neck till it quits its small complaint. He leans his forehead against your shoulder the way a book leans into a shelf, with relief. Tomorrow, you tell him, and he forgives you in advance. Back in the hall, your wife is mending a sleeve with a needle that negotiates peace between thread and wool. She does not look up right away because she is counting. When she does, you exchange a whole conversation in 3 movements of the eyebrows. You put the priest's bread where she'll find it without feeling watched. She pretends not to notice you pretending. You think you might sleep early. Your body votes yes with a yawn the size of a blessing. You make the rounds you always make. Hands to latches, eye to hearth, palm to the door bar which has saved the house from nothing but still enjoys the flattery, and have just begun to take off the weight of the day when the yard inhales. A horn, 2 notes, not sharp, not soft. The sort that puts its hand on the shoulder of your thoughts and says, "Come." A guard steps into the doorway, hat in hand, voice tucked down to a respectful murmur. "My lord," he begins out of habit and corrects to your name. Road talk, lights on the ridge, nothing lively, yet. Then the bell in the yard. Not alarm, patrol. You set the helm under your arm the way a man takes a lantern. The chapel's calm folds itself and tucks into your chest for later. Duty finds its boots without looking. You kiss 2 fingers to the air that belongs to your wife, and she returns the gesture without lifting her eyes from the sleeve. When the world is loud, you carry a blade. When it's quiet, you carry yourself carefully. Between the 2, a knight learns the weight of mercy, and sleeps a little better for it. Rain begins as a rumour on the gatehouse roof, then commits. The lantern over the postern hisses like a cat that knows its business. Rope creaks. Somewhere, a hinge confesses every decision it has ever made. The yard is a shallow lake of dim light. Boots learn the raised places by heart. Patrol, the sergeant says, as if naming a saint no one particularly favours. Cloaks come down from pegs with their wet weather voices. You test the straps on your vambrace as if they were sentences you might not finish. The helm goes under your arm for now. Helm hair can wait for heroics. Men gather in the way soldiers do, avoiding the puddle that wasn't there yesterday, sharing a joke that has no author, inventing an argument about nothing to make the air feel used. The dog counts you, insulted to find you complete, and decides to forgive. A groom brings the horses, each with his own politics. Your mount flicks rain from an ear and informs the knight he is unimpressed. Out the gate, the world narrows to the cone of lantern light and the wet breath of animals. The road is a dark sentence written in mud. The punctuation is ruts. Rain finds the seam at your collar with accurate curiosity. You leave it to its discovery. The sergeant rides 2 lengths ahead, back straight, hands quiet. He knows this road better than the map does. The map is dry. He is not. Between hedges, you practice the art of asking questions without sounding like a questioner. Carters, friars, tinkers. Who passed at noon? Who looked backward too often? Any dogs that didn't bark? People are generous with answers when you let them be the clever ones. Tonight, Clever says a pair of pack mules went east too light for their sadness, and 3 lads from the next ville carried laughter big enough to hide a bad idea. You thank the friar with deference and his donkey with a scratch. Only one of them pretends not to enjoy it. At the ford, you dismount because you always dismount. Even familiar water deserves respect. The pole finds depth where memory insists on shallows. You argue with memory softly. Hooves test the stones. The current thinks about opinions and then declines. A rook complains from a willow as if hired to do it. Beyond, a strip of moon opens like a careful eye, and then closes again, satisfied. There is work no one writes down, redirecting a fallen branch so it does not model laziness for the next storm. Replacing a waymarker the river tried to eat. slowing the patrol so a lad's boot can catch the breath it lost 2 hills ago, sending a pair of riders to walk a hedge because hedges know everything. Patience keeps time, courtesy keeps shape. Neither will ever be mentioned at supper. At a cottage where the path pinches, an old woman opens her door and lets out a wide circle of warm. She has broth, because that is what she does at this hour of the year, for anyone shaped like trouble who is also shaped like kin. The lad with the lost breath receives the ladle first. The sergeant wants to refuse, for form, then accepts, for wisdom. You take the second ladle and say the proper thanks in the grammar of sons. She answers with a look that repairs a boot and a childhood at the same time. The rain graduates to mist, the sort that achieves more with less. Your cloak learns a new weight and carries on. From the ridge, lamps glimmer in sequence along the valley like beads trying not to be a necklace. The sergeant points with his chin, the way men do when they would rather not use words in front of the dark. You make a small rearrangement of riders, nothing dramatic, just courtesy paid to the possibility of an audience. On the return, boredom takes the reins. You let it. Boredom is a shepherd. It keeps panic from breeding in the hedgerows. The men tell weather stories that become horse stories that become recipes for a stew no one will ever make. You contribute a remark about onions profound enough to win a laugh. Laughter travels far on wet roads and comes back warmer. After a day's work, the knight returns to a gatehouse and a warm hall. He reflects on small mercies and the quiet routines of home. As the sounds of the hall fade, he finds solace in simple acts, removing his armour, checking the house, and the steady breathing of his wife. A knight's life off the battlefield is defined by duty, routine, and the quiet comforts found in the everyday. What does the knight carry when swords are sleeping? The same things we all do, if we're honest. The ache we earned, the coin we haven't, the promise we meant, the kindness we almost forgot. He learns, one wet patrol at a time, that strength is a quiet craft, and patience the only banner that never mildews in the rain. So let the hall dim, and the hearth turn thought to embers. Let the yard keep watch with its ropes and hinges. Let the horses dream in their square, warm rooms. Tonight, you have done the small, hard things that make tomorrow possible. Breathe where you are. Rest the armour you do not wear. Lay down the ledger you keep in your chest. Sleep comes like a gate that knows your hand. It opens, you pass.